Yes. Today we're gonna be reacting to True Stories scary animations. If you guys enjoy these videos, then please just click the subscribe button. It'll really help out the channel. And girl, you better get that out of here and get your snacks. Go get some popcorn, get some chips, get some candy, get a soda, get a drink, like a juice drink. Go to the kitchen, steal all the snacks, and sit back, relax. And click the link in the description below and check out MJV Animations. They're the ones that made these amazing animations we're about to watch. And finally, comment down below something scary. You can put science teachers, you can put Beatles, or you can put booty. Let me know. And let's go!
I rented out an Airbnb in Northern California last summer. While scrolling on the app, I found a ton of nice houses. There was a specific location that I liked though, so I chose to look at houses around there and found that there was almost an entire street of Airbnb rentals. I looked at all of them and chose my favorite and booked it. A month later, I flew in and picked up my rental car, then drove an hour to the Airbnb. I pulled into the driveway, and I should mention that it was really late, like 10 or 11. All I wanted to do was get my stuff inside and crash on the bed, but as soon as I opened my car door, a middle-aged lady from the house next door started waving at me.
Ew.
She was standing in the empty driveway, waving and greeting me to the neighborhood. I smiled and waved back, trying not to get stuck in a conversation. I kept my back to her while I unloaded my suitcase and duffel bag, then walked up the driveway to the door.
Don't do it.
I could see her in the corner of my eye, still standing there, watching me as I walked up and entered the Airbnb. I locked the door behind me and shook my head in confusion and exhaustion, then carried everything to the bedroom. The house was nice and seemed to be in order, but I didn't bother with really checking it out because I was in a hurry to shower and get in bed. I turned the shower on and washed off.
Ew.
But while I was in there, I heard the doorbell ring. I ignored it, which I would have done even if I wasn't showering. It only rang one time, so I assumed they left, and I didn't even check after I dried off and just went straight to bed. I slept nearly 10 hours and got up well rested in the morning. That day, I went into the city and visited a popular restaurant for dinner, then drove back to the house at 7. When I pulled in, that lady from last night was standing by the front door. When she saw me, she ran back to her house and went inside. I quickly got out of the car and went to the front door, entering the code and going inside. I didn't know who this lady was, but the way she ran once she saw me made me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Over the next hour, I paid attention to all of the windows, checking frequently to see if that lady came back. I was sitting in the kitchen on my laptop when something hit the back door. It sounded like a rock being thrown at it. I looked over at the door. Again, a rock was thrown, hitting the back of the house this time. I stood up and looked out the window, and at first I didn't see anything. But then I looked closely, and in the dark field, I saw a small figure standing there. It knelt down, picked something up, then threw it right at the window I was at. I backed away in shock until I realized it was probably that lady. I opened the back door and called out, telling them to go away. I could barely see their figure in the dark. They weren't moving though. I threatened to call the police, and they still didn't move. A creepy feeling rushed through me, and I slid the door shut. I wasn't sure if I actually wanted to call the police.
No.
I mean, if it was just some crazy lady, then I didn't really feel threatened. I decided to wait and see if she does anything else, and after a while, it seemed like she'd given up. 2 hours later, I went to bed. By then, I wasn't even thinking about the lady anymore. I woke up in the middle of the night though, hearing something. I didn't know what I heard because it was quick and quiet and I wasn't fully awake yet, but I knew I heard something. Only a few seconds later, The faint sound of footsteps started coming down the hallway outside my room.
Oh, she's in.
My eyes widened, and my brain went straight into fight mode. I jumped out of bed and swung the door open. Standing just a few feet away from me was that lady, barefoot in my hallway.
Punch her in the face.
She quickly ran back and left the house. I followed her out the front door and watched her go back inside her house. Then I locked my front door and called the police. When they came and knocked on the lady's door to confront her, she didn't answer. This is when we found out that her house was actually an Airbnb as well, owned by the same person that rented me my Airbnb. No one had that house booked though, so the lady somehow knew the code and was staying in there for several days. We couldn't find any reason for her to be after me, or any signs of who she was or where she went. I left that night and flew back home. I didn't know what she was going to do if I hadn't woken up, but with her still out there, I didn't want to stay to find out.
No! Okay, don't go anywhere. Guys, I still need you, okay? We're gonna watch another one. Just stick with me, alright? This one's even creepier. Here we go.
I've worked at a graveyard for the past 15 years.
Why?
Most of those years being the typical graveyard shift, which was from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. In my mind, working overnight had way more benefits than working during the day. Day workers had more to do since more people would be visiting the yard. There would also be burials taking place a few times a week that need to be arranged. And, above everything else, night shift gets paid an extra $2 an hour. I've seen a lot during my years working night shift though. Mostly teens messing around, or the occasional drunk group of friends daring each other to walk through the yard.
Nope.
However, this night was different. I got to the small faculty building a bit early to chat with the day worker, and once he left, I did all of the normal checks and precautions at the beginning of my shift. Afterwards, my only job is really just to drive around in a golf cart every so often and just make sure nothing's going on. I'd say I only encounter something once a month, or maybe even every other month. Anyway, the first few hours were normal. I drove around several times, then went back to the small faculty building to eat my lunch. I think it was around 2 a.m. when I went back out to do another round of the yard. As I got to the far end, I saw something by the fence. It was obviously really dark, so I couldn't see much more than the general shape of a figure standing there. I drove up closer.
No!
I could tell now that it was a man standing on the outside of the fence, looking toward me. I didn't want to confront him if I didn't have to, so I turned and drove in a small loop around the lot to see if he would try to hop the fence while I was gone. But when I got back after 30 seconds,
He was gone.
He was gone. I scanned the area briefly to make sure he didn't sneak in, but it all looked clear, so I continued with my patrol. Going through the whole yard takes about 15 minutes, but sometimes I'd go slower just to pass the time.
Yeah, seriously.
I went all the way around and decided to check back on the spot where I saw the man. I really didn't have anything better to do anyways. I started driving down there, and almost immediately, I spotted the man again. He was inside the yard, standing on the gravel path. I drove up closer again, but the man didn't move.
Sir?
I exited the golf cart and started walking up to him. He looked like a 40-year-old man. I stopped just a few feet away from him. Sir, you can't be in here. I need to escort you out, I said, but he didn't even turn his head to look at me. After a second, a slight rush of fear went through me. Sir, I need you to come with me.
Run him over.
I reached out my hand
Don't
gently to tap his
touch him.
shoulder.
You dummy.
As soon as I did, he whipped his head around to look at me.
Sorry, that scared me.
He just stared into my eyes. He looked full of rage. I took my hand away, and the man turned around and started walking away. I got back in my golf cart, preparing to call the police, as I watched him go all the way down to the fence. He stepped over it and continued walking away.
The heck?
I was relieved, but still terrified. I drove straight back to the faculty building and went inside. It was a small, single-room, security-type building, but I felt a lot safer and calmer inside. I sat down and caught my breath. In all my years, I'd never really been scared because it was always just people messing around, but this was different. I waited inside for a while, I'm not sure how long, until I heard a bang on the door. I jumped out of my chair and stared at the door in fear.
Housekeeping?
A few seconds later, they banged on the door again. These were aggressive knocks, not those of someone friendly. I had nowhere to go. I picked up the desk phone and called 911. I didn't know what they wanted or why they were here, but I wasn't going to risk it all to find out.
Quit your job.
After probably 3 minutes of them banging on the door, I heard them walk away. I still waited for the police to arrive before I opened the door. The following day, my manager was able to pull the CCTV security footage from the building. What I saw was horrifying. Just minutes after I entered the building, the man I'd seen in the yard earlier walked up to the door. He stood there silently for nearly 15 minutes before he banged on the door. He was also holding something in his hand, but the footage wasn't detailed enough to make out the object. It was likely a small pipe or bat of some sort.
Jeez.
The man was never identified, but I still work the same job at the graveyard and haven't seen him since.
No! Don't work at a graveyard, okay? That's the lesson. Work at McDonald's, I hear they pay $31 an hour. But if you enjoyed this video, then go ahead and smack that like button. And yeah, I'ma see ya in the next one. Peace.